My name is Veronica Shaw. I'm 65 years old. And after paying for my daughter's medical school for 6 long years, she called me an illiterate the moment she graduated. She denied me in front of everyone. Said I embarrass her in public. And that she is no longer my daughter. Before we dive deeper into this painful story, please like this video, subscribe, and tell me your name, your city, and the word present in the comments below. I never thought my life would become a story like this. I never imagined that the child I carried in my womb, the baby I nursed through sleepless nights, the girl I raised with every ounce of strength I had, would one day look at me with such disgust. Such shame. As if I were a stain on her perfect new life. But let me take you back. Let me tell you how this all began. Because you need to understand what I sacrificed. What I gave up. What I endured. So you can truly grasp the depth of this betrayal. I was 23 when my husband died. 23 years old with a 3-year-old daughter and nothing but a small rented apartment and the clothes on our backs. David had been my everything. We met when I was 19, married at 20, and I thought we'd grow old together. But life doesn't care about your plans. A drunk driver took him from us one rainy evening. One moment he was there, the next he was gone. And I was left alone with our baby girl, Melissa. I had no college degree. I barely finished high school before I got married. My parents were farmers, simple people who believed education was for the wealthy. I could read and write, yes, but just enough to get by. I wasn't what anyone would call educated. I wasn't refined. I wasn't sophisticated. I was just a young widow trying to survive. Those first years were hell. Pure, unrelenting hell. I worked as a cleaner in an office building during the day. At night, I washed dishes at a restaurant. On weekends, I took in laundry from neighbors. I slept maybe 4 hours a night. Sometimes less. My hands were raw and cracked from detergents and bleach. My back ached constantly from bending over sinks and scrubbing floors. But I didn't care about the pain. I didn't care about the exhaustion. All I cared about was making sure Melissa had food in her stomach and a roof over her head. She was such a sweet child back then. My little angel. She had her father's eyes, bright and curious, always asking questions. Even when we had nothing, she would smile at me and tell me I was the best mama in the world. She'd draw pictures for me with broken crayons we'd find at thrift stores. She'd help me fold laundry, her tiny hands carefully smoothing out wrinkles. She made poverty feel bearable. As she grew older, I noticed something special about her. She was smart. Incredibly smart. Her teachers would pull me aside during parent-teacher conferences, their eyes wide with amazement. "Mrs. Shaw," they'd say, "Melissa is exceptional. She has a gift. She could be anything she wants to be." And every time I heard those words, my heart would swell with pride and determination. My daughter would not have the life I had. She would not struggle the way I struggled. She would have opportunities. She would have education. She would have everything I couldn't give myself. When Melissa was in middle school, she came home one day glowing with excitement. "Mama," she said, clutching my hands, "I want to be a doctor. I want to help people. I want to save lives." And I looked into those bright eyes, and I knew. I knew that no matter what it took, I would make that dream come true for her. But dreams cost money. Lots of money. More money than a cleaning woman and dishwasher could ever hope to earn through honest labor alone. Medical school wasn't just expensive. It was astronomically expensive. Especially the private medical university Melissa wanted to attend, the one with the prestigious reputation, the one that would open doors for her future. So I worked harder. I added a third job. I started cleaning houses for wealthy families on Sunday mornings. I took night shifts at a factory packing boxes. I stopped buying new clothes for myself. I wore the same 3 dresses for years, patching holes, mending tears, making them last. I stopped going to the doctor when I got sick. I couldn't afford it. I just pushed through the pain, the fevers, the exhaustion. I sold my mother's jewelry, the only inheritance I had. Beautiful pieces that had been in our family for generations. A pearl necklace. A gold bracelet. Earrings with small diamonds. I took them to a pawn shop and watched as the man behind the counter weighed them, calculating their worth with cold indifference. The money I got wasn't even a quarter of what they were truly worth, but I took it anyway. What choice did I have? I sold our furniture, piece by piece. The dining table my husband built with his own hands. The rocking chair I'd nursed Melissa in as a baby. The bookshelf that had held our small collection of books. Everything went. We sat on folding chairs. We ate meals on our laps. Our apartment became emptier and emptier, but I told myself it didn't matter. Material things didn't matter. Only Melissa's future mattered. I took out loans. High-interest loans from predatory lenders who knew I was desperate. I signed papers I barely understood, agreeing to terms that would haunt me for years. But what else could I do? The banks wouldn't give me credit. I had nothing to offer as collateral. These loan sharks were my only option. When Melissa got accepted into medical school, I cried. I cried tears of joy and relief and terror. Joy because my baby was going to be a doctor. Relief because all the sacrifice was leading somewhere. Terror because I had no idea how I was going to pay for it. The tuition alone was enough to make my head spin. Add in books, supplies, living expenses. It was overwhelming. Crushing. But I did it. Somehow, I did it. I worked every possible hour. I slept 3 hours a night, sometimes less. I stopped eating proper meals. Bread and tea became my staples. I lost weight. My hair started falling out from stress and malnutrition. My hands developed arthritis from years of manual labor. My knees ached constantly. But I kept going. I kept working. I kept sending money to Melissa. During her first year, she called me every week. "Mama, thank you," she'd say. "I know how hard you're working. I promise I'll make you proud. I promise I'll take care of you one day." Those words kept me alive. They fueled me through the darkest moments. When I wanted to collapse, when I wanted to give up, I'd remember her voice, her promises, her gratitude. My neighbors thought I was crazy. "Veronica," they'd say, shaking their heads, "you're killing yourself for that girl. What if she forgets you? What if she doesn't appreciate it?" And I'd laugh. I'd wave them off. "My Melissa isn't like that," I'd say. "She's different. She loves me. She'll always love me." But as the years passed, something changed. The phone calls became less frequent. Once a week turned into once a month. Then once every few months. When we did talk, she seemed distracted. Distant. She'd mention her new friends, their wealthy families, their expensive clothes, their fancy apartments. She'd talk about the parties she attended, the restaurants she went to, the lifestyle she was becoming accustomed to. "Mama, I need more money," she'd say. Not "how are you?" Not "are you eating enough?" Not "are you taking care of yourself?" Just "I need more money. For new textbooks. For a laptop. For professional clothes for her clinical rotations. For a security deposit on a better apartment." The requests never stopped. And like a fool, I kept giving. I kept sacrificing. I kept believing that once she graduated, once she became a doctor, everything would be okay. She'd remember. She'd appreciate it. She'd take care of me like she'd promised. I gave up my own dreams during those years. I'd always wanted to learn to read properly, to take adult education classes, to maybe even get my GED. But there was no time. No money. Every minute, every penny, went to Melissa. I existed solely to support her. I had no life of my own. No hobbies. No friends. No joy except the joy I felt knowing my daughter was becoming somebody. Somebody important. Somebody respected. Year 6 arrived. The final year. Graduation was approaching. Melissa had been accepted into a competitive residency program at a prestigious hospital. She was on her way. And I was so proud. So incredibly proud. Despite everything, despite the pain and the exhaustion and the debt that would take me the rest of my life to repay, I was proud. 2 weeks before graduation, Melissa called. "Mama," she said, and her voice was different. Cold. Flat. "About graduation. I don't think you should come." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What?" I managed to say. "What do you mean?" "Of course I'm coming. This is your graduation. I've been waiting 6 years for this day." "The thing is," she said, and I could hear the discomfort in her voice, "my friends and their families are going to be there. Important people. Doctors, surgeons, hospital administrators. And you. Mama, you don't really fit in with that crowd. You don't know how to act in those settings. You'll be out of place. I just think it would be better if you stayed home." I felt like the ground had opened up beneath me. "Melissa," I said, my voice shaking, "I've given you everything. Everything I have, everything I am. How can you ask me not to come to your graduation?" She sighed, irritated. "Don't be dramatic, Mama. I'm not saying you can't celebrate with me. We can have dinner together after, just the two of us. But the ceremony and the reception. Those are professional events. I need to make the right impression. Do you understand?" I didn't understand. I couldn't understand. But I was so shocked, so hurt, that I just mumbled something and hung up. I spent that night crying. Crying until I had no tears left. Crying until my body shook with silent sobs. How had I raised a daughter who was ashamed of me? Where had I gone wrong? But the next morning, I made a decision. I would go to that graduation. I had earned the right to be there. I had paid for every single class, every single book, every single meal that allowed her to reach this day. She could be embarrassed if she wanted. She could be uncomfortable. But I would be there. I bought a new dress for the occasion. Well, new to me. I got it at a thrift store, but it was clean and modest and appropriate. A simple navy blue dress with long sleeves and a collar. I paired it with my only pair of decent shoes, black flats I'd owned for 10 years. I did my hair as nicely as I could, pulling it back into a neat bun. I looked at myself in the mirror that morning, and I thought I looked respectable. Presentable. Like a mother who had every right to attend her daughter's graduation. The ceremony was held in a grand auditorium. Beautiful, with high ceilings and elegant decorations. As I walked in, I immediately felt out of place. Everyone around me was dressed in expensive clothes. Designer suits. Silk dresses. Diamond jewelry. The women smelled of expensive perfume. The men wore watches that probably cost more than my entire year's salary. And there I was, in my thrift store dress and decade-old shoes, feeling like an intruder in a world that wasn't mine. I found a seat in the back. I didn't want to embarrass Melissa by sitting too close to the front. I clutched my small purse in my lap and waited, my heart pounding with nervous anticipation. I couldn't wait to see my daughter in her cap and gown. My daughter, the doctor. After all these years, all this sacrifice, she was finally going to be Dr. Melissa Shaw. The graduates filed in, and I craned my neck, searching for Melissa. When I finally spotted her, my breath caught. She looked so beautiful. So professional. So accomplished. Her cap sat perfectly on her styled hair. Her gown was crisp and clean. She walked with confidence, her head held high. And for a moment, all the pain and struggle fell away. This was my daughter. I had done this. I had made this possible. After the ceremony, families gathered in a reception area. Champagne was being served. Hors d'oeuvres were being passed around on silver trays. I stood awkwardly near a wall, not sure what to do with myself. I didn't drink any champagne. I didn't take any food. I just waited for Melissa to find me. And then I saw her. She was surrounded by a group of people. Young, beautiful people in expensive clothes, laughing and clinking glasses. I recognized some of them from photos she'd sent over the years. Her classmates. Her friends. The people who had become her new family. I walked toward her, my heart full of love and pride. "Melissa," I called out, smiling. She turned, and I saw it. The flicker of horror in her eyes. The way her smile faltered. The way her whole body tensed. But I was already there, already reaching for her, already pulling her into a hug. "Congratulations, baby," I whispered, tears in my eyes. "I'm so proud of you. So incredibly proud." She stood stiff in my arms. She didn't hug me back. After a moment, she pulled away, and I could see the embarrassment on her face. Her friends were staring at us. At me. I could see them taking in my cheap dress, my worn shoes, my work-roughened hands. "Melissa," one of the women said, a tall blonde with perfect makeup and a dress that probably cost thousands. "Who is this?" I opened my mouth to introduce myself. "I'm her mother." "She's a family friend," Melissa interrupted, her voice sharp. "She helped out a bit when I was younger. She insisted on coming today." I felt like I'd been slapped. "Melissa," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "what are you saying?" She wouldn't look at me. She looked at her friends instead, laughing nervously. "I'm sorry about this. She's a bit confused sometimes." One of the men, handsome in an expensive suit, raised an eyebrow. "Confused? Is she okay?" He tapped his temple, suggesting mental illness. "She's fine," Melissa said quickly. "Just, from a different generation. A different background. She doesn't really understand professional settings." "Melissa." I reached for her arm, desperate. "Stop this. Why are you saying these things?" She jerked away from my touch. "Don't," she hissed. "Don't make a scene." The blonde woman wrinkled her nose. "Melissa, darling, if she's making you uncomfortable, security can escort her out." "No, no," Melissa said, but I could hear the uncertainty in her voice. As if she was actually considering it. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and I didn't recognize the person standing in front of me. This wasn't the little girl who had drawn pictures for me with broken crayons. This wasn't the teenager who had promised to take care of me one day. This was a stranger. A cold, cruel stranger wearing my daughter's face. "I sacrificed everything for you," I said, my voice breaking. "Everything. Do you understand that?" I worked myself to the bone. "I sold everything I owned. I went hungry so you could eat. I gave up my entire life so you could have this. And you won't even acknowledge me as your mother?" The group fell silent. They were all staring now. More people nearby had turned to watch. Melissa's face flushed red, but not with shame. With anger. "You want to talk about sacrifice?" she said, her voice low and venomous. You want everyone to know how you sacrificed for me? Fine. Yes, she paid for my education. Yes, she worked menial jobs to support me. But let's be honest about what she is. She's illiterate. She can barely read. She has no education, no class, no understanding of how to behave in civilized society. She's an embarrassment. The word hit me like a knife to the chest. Illiterate. She said it with such contempt. Such disgust. All my life, Melissa continued, and now her voice was rising, I've had to overcome where I came from. Do you know what it's like to have a mother who can't help you with homework? Who can't understand anything beyond the most basic concepts? Who shows up to school events in cheap clothes, smelling like cleaning chemicals? I had to work twice as hard as everyone else just to prove I wasn't like her. Tears were streaming down my face now, but I couldn't move. Couldn't speak. I was frozen, listening to my daughter destroy me in front of strangers. So yes, she said, her voice cold and final, she helped financially. And I suppose I should thank her for that. But emotionally? Intellectually? She gave me nothing. Nothing but shame and embarrassment. And I'm done. I'm done pretending. I'm done feeling guilty. As far as I'm concerned, I have no mother. I got myself through medical school. I earned this degree. And I'm going to build a life that has nothing to do with people like her. The blonde woman put a hand on Melissa's shoulder, supportive. You're so brave, she murmured. It must have been so difficult. It was, Melissa said. And then, finally, she looked at me. Her eyes were hard. Empty. You should go now. You don't belong here. I stood there for a moment longer, waiting. Waiting for her to take it back. Waiting for her to realize what she'd just done. Waiting for some spark of the daughter I'd raised to appear. But there was nothing. Just cold, merciless rejection. So I turned. And I walked away. Through the crowd of people who had witnessed my humiliation. Past tables of expensive food I'd never tasted. Out of that beautiful building and into the parking lot where I'd left my ancient, rusted car. I sat in that car for an hour. Maybe longer. I don't remember. I just sat there, staring at nothing, feeling nothing. Shock, I think. My mind couldn't process what had happened. Couldn't accept it. Eventually, I drove home. To my empty apartment. To my folding chair and bare walls. To the life I'd reduced to nothing so my daughter could have everything. And I cried. I cried for days. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I just existed in a fog of pain and disbelief. But then, slowly, something shifted inside me. The crying stopped. The pain didn't go away, but it changed. It hardened. It transformed into something else. Something cold and clear and focused. I realized something. I had spent the last 22 years living for someone else. 22 years with no identity beyond Melissa's mother. 22 years of sacrifice and selflessness and devotion. And that person I'd devoted myself to had just told me I was worthless. An embarrassment. Nothing. But she was wrong. I wasn't nothing. I was a survivor. I was a woman who had endured unimaginable hardship and kept going. I was a worker, a fighter, a woman with more strength than most people could ever understand. And I'd forgotten that. I'd let my worth become entirely tied to being her mother. But I was more than that. I had always been more than that. I made a decision. I would disappear. Not literally, but from her life. Completely. She wanted nothing to do with me? Fine. She'd get her wish. But I wouldn't disappear into nothing. I would disappear into something new. Something of mine. I had about $8,000 left. Money I'd been saving for emergencies, for my old age, for the inevitable medical bills that would come as I got older. It wasn't much. But it was something. It was a start. I started making plans. Quiet plans. Careful plans. I didn't tell anyone what I was thinking. I just worked and planned and researched. I went to the library, the one place I'd always felt comfortable, and I started reading. Really reading. Not just getting by, but actually learning. I checked out books on business. On entrepreneurship. On skills I could learn at my age. And I discovered something. I wasn't as illiterate as Melissa had claimed. Yes, I struggled with reading as a young person. Yes, I'd never finished high school properly. But I wasn't stupid. And I wasn't incapable of learning. I just never had the opportunity. Never had the time or resources. But now? Now I had nothing but time. No daughter to support. No one to sacrifice for. Just me and my stubborn will to survive. I spent 3 months planning. 3 months of learning. And then I took the leap. I moved. Not far, just to a town about 2 hours away. A small town with low rent and friendly people and opportunities for someone willing to work hard. I found a tiny apartment, even smaller than my old one, but it was mine. Really mine. Not just a place I slept between jobs to support someone else. And I started a business. A small business. A bakery. Now, I know what you're thinking. How does a woman with no formal education start a bakery? But here's the thing. I'd been cooking and baking my whole life. When you're poor, you learn to make things from scratch because it's cheaper. I knew how to make bread, cakes, cookies, all of it. I'd been doing it for decades. I just never thought of it as a skill. Never thought of it as something valuable. But it was valuable. I rented a small commercial kitchen space, just a few hours a week at first. I baked in the evenings after my day job cleaning offices. I started selling at a local farmer's market. Just a small table with some loaves of bread and cookies. Nothing fancy. But people liked my food. Really liked it. The bread was crusty and perfect. The cookies were soft and flavorful. I charged fair prices because I understood what it was like to count every penny. And word spread. Slowly at first, but steadily. I kept learning. I took free online courses on running a business. I learned to use a smartphone, which I'd never had before because I'd always given Melissa money for her phone instead. I joined social media, created accounts for my little bakery. I taught myself photography so I could take pictures of my food. It was hard. So hard. My arthritic hands struggled with the tiny buttons. My tired eyes struggled with the small screens. But I kept at it. Within 6 months, I was able to quit one of my cleaning jobs. Within a year, I quit both of them. My bakery wasn't making me rich, but it was supporting me. Me. Just me. And that was enough. The community embraced me. The people in this small town didn't care that I hadn't gone to college. They didn't care that I sometimes mispronounced words or struggled with complicated concepts. They cared that I made good food, charged fair prices, and treated everyone with kindness and respect. I made friends for the first time in decades. Real friends. Women who invited me to their homes for coffee. Men who helped me fix equipment when it broke. Young people who asked for my recipes and called me Miss Veronica with genuine affection. I realized I'd been starving for community, for connection, for the simple human experience of being valued for who I was, not just what I could provide. I started teaching free baking classes for low-income families. Once a month, I'd open my kitchen and show people how to make bread, how to stretch ingredients, how to feed their families on a budget. I saw myself in them. The struggle. The exhaustion. The determination. And I wanted to help. 2 years after I left, my little bakery had grown into something real. Something substantial. I'd been able to move into a larger space. I'd hired 2 employees. I was catering events, supplying bread to local restaurants, and shipping specialty items to customers across the state. A local newspaper did a story on me. "Local baker rises from poverty to success," the headline read. They took my picture, standing in front of my shop, smiling. Really smiling. For the first time in years, I felt proud of myself. Not proud of my daughter's accomplishments. Proud of my own. A nonprofit organization that supported women entrepreneurs reached out to me. They wanted to feature my story. They gave me a small grant to expand. They connected me with a business mentor, a retired executive who helped me understand finances and marketing and growth strategies. Things I'd never learned because I'd spent my youth married and my middle age sacrificing for my daughter. I started a scholarship program. Just a small one. Every year, I'd choose one student from a low-income background and pay for a semester of their community college tuition. Not medical school. I couldn't afford that. But something. A start. A chance. The thing I'd never had for myself because I'd given everything to Melissa. People called me generous. But it wasn't generosity. It was healing. Every time I helped someone, I healed a little piece of the wound my daughter had left in my heart. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to me, Melissa's life was falling apart. I didn't know this at the time. I'd blocked her number. Deleted her from my life. I didn't look her up online. Didn't ask about her. I was done. Or so I thought. Her residency started well. She was good at medicine, I'll give her that. She'd inherited her father's steady hands and sharp mind. But she'd also inherited something darker. Pride. Arrogance. A cruel streak that I'd never noticed when she was young, or maybe I'd just refused to see it. She spent money like it was infinite. Designer clothes for every occasion. A luxury apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows and expensive furniture. A European car that costs more than most people make in years. She traveled. Paris. Milan. Tokyo. She posted it all on social media, creating an image of success and sophistication. An image that was built on credit cards and loans and the delusion that her income would always increase. But then the pandemic hit. And everything changed. Hospitals were overwhelmed. Residents were working 100-hour weeks. The stress was immense. And in that stress, in that pressure, Melissa's arrogance became dangerous. She made a mistake. A serious one. She dismissed a patient's symptoms, too confident in her own assessment, too proud to ask for a second opinion. The patient nearly died. Would have died if another doctor hadn't caught the error in time. There was an investigation. Melissa wasn't fired, but she was reprimanded. Put on probation. Her reputation took a hit. And the lifestyle she'd built started to crumble. The credit card bills came due. The loans demanded payment. Her boyfriend, a wealthy surgeon she'd been dating, left her when he realized she was in debt. He didn't want to tie his finances to someone fiscally irresponsible, he said. Her friends, those sophisticated people she'd surrounded herself with, slowly drifted away. They didn't want to be associated with someone who'd made a medical error. Someone whose perfect image had cracked. She tried to keep up appearances. Kept spending money she didn't have. Kept pretending everything was fine. But the debt grew. The stress grew. She started making more mistakes at work. Small ones, but noticeable. Her supervisors were watching her now, documenting everything. She was one more error away from losing her residency position. And then she got a lawyer's letter. The family of the patient she'd nearly killed was suing her for medical malpractice. Even though the hospital's insurance would cover most of it, she'd need her own lawyer. More money she didn't have. She was drowning. Absolutely drowning. And she had no one to turn to. Her friends were gone. Her boyfriend was gone. And her mother, the woman who had given her everything, she'd driven away with cruelty and shame. I learned all of this much later. At the time, I knew nothing. I was in my own world, building my own life, healing my own wounds. I was learning to be Veronica Shaw, not just Melissa's mother. And it was beautiful. Painful, but beautiful. Then, about 3 years after that terrible graduation day, something happened. A woman came into my bakery. Middle-aged, well-dressed, with kind eyes. She ordered coffee and a pastry and sat by the window. I didn't pay much attention at first. I was busy with other customers. But when the rush died down, she approached the counter. "Veronica Shaw?" she asked. "Yes?" I said, wary. People usually just called me Veronica or Miss V. "I'm Dr. Patricia Morrison. I work at City General Hospital. I'm one of the attending physicians in the internal medicine department." My heart clenched. I knew immediately this was about Melissa. City General was where she was doing her residency. "I don't want to talk about her," I said quickly. "Whatever this is about, I'm not interested." Dr. Morrison held up her hands. "I understand. And I'm not here to ask you to do anything. I'm here because I think you deserve to know some things." "May I sit?" Against my better judgment, I nodded. We sat at a corner table, away from other customers. "Your daughter told everyone she had no family," Dr. Morrison said gently. "No parents, no support system. But a few months ago, I was reviewing some of her paperwork, and I saw emergency contact information from her application. Your name. Your old address. I was curious, so I did some searching. And I found you here. Found your story in the local paper." I said nothing. "Just wait. Melissa is struggling," she continued. "Professionally and personally. She made a serious error in judgment with a patient. She's being sued. She's deeply in debt. And she has no one. She pushes everyone away with her arrogance and her cruelty. She's isolated and drowning, and I think she's finally realizing the cost of the choices she's made." "Good," I said, and my voice was cold. "Let her realize it. Let her face the consequences." Dr. Morrison nodded slowly. "I understand your anger. I can't imagine how much she hurt you. But I also see a young woman destroying herself. And as a doctor, as someone who's supposed to heal, I had to at least try. Try to find the mother she denied. Try to see if there is any chance." "Of what?" I interrupted. "Of me rushing in to save her again? Of me sacrificing myself one more time for a daughter who thinks I'm an embarrassment? No. No, Dr. Morrison. I'm done. I gave her everything once. I gave her my youth, my health, my money, my dreams. Everything. And she threw it back in my face and called me worthless. I will not do that again." "I'm not asking you to save her," Dr. Morrison said quietly. "I'm just asking you to know. To have the information. What you do with it is entirely your choice." She stood up, left money for her coffee on the table, and walked out. And I sat there, trembling with anger and pain and something else. Something I didn't want to name. For weeks, I tried to forget that conversation. Tried to focus on my work, my business, and my new life. But it gnawed at me. Not guilt, exactly. I didn't feel guilty. I'd done nothing wrong. But there was something. A splinter in my heart that wouldn't leave. I started having dreams about Melissa. Not the adult who had rejected me, but the child. The little girl with bright eyes who used to tell me I was the best mama in the world. The teenager who had promised to take care of me someday. The daughter I thought I was raising. One night, unable to sleep, I did something I'd sworn I'd never do. I looked her up online. And what I found shocked me. Her social media, which had once been full of glamorous photos and boastful posts, was nearly empty now. The last post was from months ago. She looked thin in the photo. Exhausted. There were dark circles under her eyes. The caption was something generic about pushing through challenges. I looked at reviews of her as a doctor. Most were positive, but the recent ones, some were concerned. Seemed distracted. Didn't listen to my concerns. Felt rushed and dismissed. This wasn't the excellent doctor I'd imagined. This was someone falling apart. And against every instinct of self-preservation I had, I felt something. Not sympathy, exactly. Not forgiveness. But something. A flicker of the mother I used to be. The woman who couldn't stand to see her child in pain, even when that child had caused her immeasurable pain. I didn't reach out. I wasn't ready for that. But I stopped blocking her number. Just in case. Just in case. 3 months later, my phone rang. Unknown number, but local area code. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. Hello? Silence. Then, a voice I hadn't heard in over 3 years. Older. Tired. Broken. Mama? I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. That one word, the word she used to say with such love, now said with such desperation, hit me like a freight train. Mama, I know I have no right to call you. I know what I did. I know. I know I don't deserve anything from you. But I didn't know who else. Her voice broke. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I was so wrong about everything. I gripped the phone, my hand shaking. Why are you calling me, Melissa? I lost everything, she whispered. My apartment. My car. I'm being sued. I might lose my medical license. Everyone I thought was my friend is gone. And I'm alone. Completely alone. And I realized I did this to myself. I threw away the one person who actually loved me. Who actually cared. I threw you away like you were nothing when you were everything. Tears were running down my face, but I kept my voice steady. And now you want me to save you? No, she said, and she was crying too. No, I know you can't save me. I know I have to save myself. But I needed to tell you I'm sorry. I needed you to know that you were never an embarrassment. You were never worthless. You were amazing. You were everything a mother should be. And I was blind. Cruel. I became everything I despised. I became the kind of person who judges others by their education instead of their character. Who values wealth over love. Who throws away the sacred for the superficial. I closed my eyes, letting her words wash over me. Words I'd waited years to hear. I don't know if you can ever forgive me, she continued, her voice raw with pain. I don't even know if you should forgive me. But I needed to say it. I needed you to know that you were right. About everything. And I was wrong. About everything. I sat down heavily in my chair, my legs suddenly unable to support me. For years, I'd imagined this moment. Sometimes I imagined myself hanging up immediately, Sometimes I imagined myself screaming at her, unleashing all the hurt and rage. Sometimes I imagined myself collapsing into forgiveness, rushing to her side, falling back into the old pattern of sacrifice. But the reality was different from all of those fantasies. The reality was complicated. Messy. Painful in ways I hadn't anticipated. "Where are you?" I asked quietly. I'm in a small apartment. A terrible one, honestly. In a bad neighborhood. It's all I can afford now. I'm still working at the hospital, but barely. I'm one mistake away from being fired. The lawsuit is draining what little money I have left. I sold everything valuable I owned. The car is gone. The designer clothes are gone. Everything. "Good," I said, and my voice was hard. "You needed to lose those things. You need to understand what it's like to have nothing. Because that's where I lived for decades while I gave you everything." "I know," she whispered. "I know, Mama." "Don't call me that," I said sharply. "You don't get to call me that. Not yet. Maybe not ever. You gave up the right to call me that 3 years ago when you told a room full of strangers that you had no mother." She sobbed on the other end of the line. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Sorry doesn't erase what you did, Melissa. Sorry doesn't heal the wound you carved into my heart. Do you understand that? Do you understand what you took from me? It wasn't just my dignity at that graduation. It was everything. Every sacrifice I made, you retroactively destroyed. You made it all meaningless. You took every sleepless night, every hungry day, every moment of pain and exhaustion, and you told me it was worthless. That I was worthless. You were never worthless," she cried. "Never. I was so caught up in this image I was trying to create. This perfect, sophisticated, self-made doctor. And you didn't fit into that image. You reminded me of where I came from. And I was ashamed. But the shame wasn't about you. It was about me. About my own weakness. My own shallow values. I couldn't see that then. But I see it now." "It took you losing everything to see it," I said bitterly. "It took you hitting rock bottom to remember that the woman who raised you was a human being worthy of respect." "Yes," she said simply. "Yes, it did. And I can't change that. I can't go back and be the daughter you deserved. But I want to try to be better now. Not for you. I have no right to ask anything of you. But for myself. So I can live with myself. So I can look in the mirror and not hate the person looking back." I was quiet for a long moment. Then I asked the question that had been burning in my mind. "Why now? Is it just because you're in trouble? If your life was still perfect, would you have ever called?" The silence on the other end told me everything. "I don't know," she finally admitted. "I want to say yes. I want to believe I would have eventually seen the truth. But honestly? I don't know. Maybe it did take losing everything. Maybe I needed to fall this far to understand what I'd thrown away. Does that make me a terrible person?" "Yes," I said bluntly. "It does. It makes you someone who only valued me when you needed something. That's not love, Melissa. That's not even basic human decency. That's opportunism." "You're right," she said. "You're absolutely right. And I don't blame you if you hang up right now and never speak to me again. I wouldn't blame you if you changed your number so I could never find you. I deserve that. I deserve to live with the consequences of what I did." And at that moment, I had a choice. I could hang up. I could walk away. I could let her drown in the mess she'd created. And part of me wanted to. Part of me wanted her to suffer the way I'd suffered. Wanted her to feel abandoned and worthless and ashamed. But there was another part of me. A quieter part. The part that had spent the last 3 years rebuilding myself, learning to value myself, discovering my own strength. And that part knew something important: my healing didn't depend on her suffering. My worth didn't come from her punishment. "I'm not going to save you," I said finally. "I want to be very clear about that. I'm not going to pay your debts. I'm not going to fix your career. I'm not going to swoop in and rescue you the way I used to. Those days are over." "I understand," she said. "But," I continued, and I heard her breath catch, "I'm not going to abandon you completely either. Not because you deserve my help. You don't. But because I'm not the same woman you rejected 3 years ago. I'm stronger now. I have boundaries now. And I can offer you something small, something limited, without destroying myself in the process." "What do you mean?" "I mean we can talk. Occasionally. On my terms. When I'm ready. I will not be manipulated. I will not be guilt. I will not be taken advantage of. The moment I feel you're using me, I'm gone. Permanently. Do you understand?" "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I understand. And if we're going to have any kind of relationship going forward, you need to do the work. Real work. Not just apologizing because you're in trouble. I want to see change. Genuine change. In how you treat people. In your values. In your character." How do I show you that?" "You start by fixing your own life," I said. "You take responsibility for your mistakes. You make amends where you can. You work on being a better doctor, a better person, a better human being. Not for me. For yourself. And maybe, if you actually do that work, if you actually become someone worth knowing, maybe then we can talk about rebuilding something." There was a long pause. Then, "Can I ask you something?" "What?" "How did you do it? How did you survive after what I did to you?" I would have thought it would break you." I laughed, but it was a bitter sound. It almost did. For weeks, I thought I'd die from the pain. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't function. I wanted to die, honestly. I thought about it. About just ending it all. Because what was the point? I'd spent my entire adult life living for you, and you'd thrown me away like garbage. What was left? She was crying again, but I continued. But then I got angry. Really, truly angry. And that anger saved my life. I realized I'd forgotten who I was. I'd let my entire identity become wrapped up in being your mother. And when you rejected me, I thought I was nothing. But I wasn't nothing. I was Veronica Shaw. I was a survivor. I was a fighter. I was a woman with skills and strength and worth that had nothing to do with you." "What did you do?" she asked quietly. "I built a life," I said simply. "A real life. I moved away. I started a business. I made friends. I learned things I'd never had the chance to learn before. I discovered I wasn't illiterate and worthless like you said. I was capable. I was smart in my own way. I just hadn't had opportunities. So I created opportunities for myself." "What kind of business?" "A bakery," I said, and I couldn't keep the pride out of my voice. "I own a bakery. A successful one. I employ people. I cater events. I teach baking classes. I even started a small scholarship program for low-income students. Everything I am now, I built with my own 2 hands. Nobody gave it to me. Nobody paid for it. I did it myself." The silence on the other end was heavy. Finally, she spoke, and her voice was filled with awe and regret. You really did it. You really built something amazing. Yes, I said. I did. And that's why I can talk to you now without falling apart. Because my worth doesn't come from you anymore. My identity isn't tied to being your mother. I'm Veronica Shaw, business owner, teacher, community member, friend. And somewhere in that list, I used to be your mother. But that's not the most important thing about me anymore. I'm proud of you, she said softly. I know I have no right to say that. But I am. I'm so proud of you, Mama, she caught herself. I'm sorry. Veronica. Don't be proud of me, I said sharply. Don't you dare be proud of me. You don't get to take any credit for this. You don't get to feel good about what I built. You have no claim to my success. This is mine. Only mine. You're right, she said. I'm sorry. That was inappropriate. We sat in silence for a moment. Then I said, I have to go. I have work to do. Early morning baking. Okay, she said quickly. Okay. Thank you for talking to me. Thank you for not hanging up immediately. Don't thank me yet, I said. This was one conversation. 1. Don't expect more until I'm ready. I won't. I promise. Melissa, I said, and my voice softened just slightly. I hope you figure your life out. I really do. Not for my sake. For yours. Because the person you were becoming, that person was going to end up alone and miserable. And despite everything, I don't want that for you. Thank you, she whispered. I hung up without saying goodbye. After that call, I didn't contact her. And for weeks, she didn't contact me either. I went about my life, working in my bakery, teaching my classes, spending time with my friends. But she was there, in the back of my mind. A presence I couldn't quite shake. Then, about a month later, something arrived in the mail. A letter. Handwritten. From Melissa. I almost threw it away without reading it. But curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. The letter was long. Pages and pages of her neat handwriting. She wrote about her life. About the mistakes she'd made. About the therapy she'd started attending. About how she was working to pay off her debts, bit by bit. About how she'd started volunteering at a free clinic on her days off, seeing patients who couldn't afford regular care. Patients who reminded her of me, she wrote. She didn't ask for anything. Didn't beg for forgiveness or plead for me to contact her. She just wrote. Shared. Opened up in a way she never had before. At the end of the letter, she wrote, I don't expect you to write back. But I wanted you to know I'm trying. Really trying. Not because I think it will fix what I broke. But because I need to be better. For all the people I hurt with my arrogance and cruelty. And especially for the one person who deserved better from me all along. I put the letter in a drawer and tried to forget about it. But a few weeks later, when another letter arrived, I read that one too. And then another. And another. She wrote once a month. Never asking for anything. Just updating me on her life. On her progress. In the lessons she was learning. In one letter, she described a patient she'd seen. An elderly woman, poor, uneducated, who reminded her of me. I sat with her for an hour, she wrote. Just talking. Listening to her story. Learning about her life. And I realized I'd never done that with you. I'd never asked about your dreams, your fears, your experiences. I'd only ever seen you as someone who existed to support me. I'm so ashamed of that. This woman, this patient, she's lived an incredible life. full of struggle and triumph and wisdom. Just like you. And I almost never saw it in you because I was too busy being ashamed of things that don't matter. Reading that letter, I cried. Really cried. Not tears of pain this time, but something else. Something like grief for the relationship we should have had. The relationship we might still never have. 6 months after that first phone call, I decided to write back. Just a short note. I told her I'd been reading her letters. That I could see she was trying. That I appreciated her not asking me for anything. And I told her something else: you can call me Mama again. If you want. But understand that it means something now. It means respect. It means valuing me as a person, not just as someone who serves a function in your life. Can you do that? Her response came within days. Yes, she wrote. Yes, I can. And I will spend the rest of my life proving it to you. We started talking on the phone again. Not often. Maybe once a month. Brief conversations about our lives. She told me about her work, and for the first time, I heard humility in her voice when she spoke. She admitted when she didn't know something. She talked about learning from more experienced doctors. She mentioned patients who taught her important lessons. And I told her about my bakery. About the new flavors I was experimenting with. About the scholarship students I was supporting. About my life, my real life, the one that had nothing to do with her. A year after her first apologetic phone call, she asked if she could visit. I want to see your bakery, she said. I want to see what you built. And I want you to decide if I'm worthy of being let back into your life. Really let back in. I thought about it for a long time. Then I said yes. She arrived on a Saturday afternoon. I watched from the bakery window as she got out of an old, modest car. Not the luxury vehicle she used to drive. She was dressed simply. Jeans and a sweater. No designer labels. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked older than she should have at her age. The stress and struggle had marked her. But she also looked softer somehow. More human. She walked into the bakery and stopped, looking around. Taking in the warm lighting, the displays of bread and pastries, the chalkboard menu, the photos on the wall of community events and baking classes. Mama, she said, and there were tears in her eyes. This is beautiful. This is really beautiful. Thank you, I said simply. We sat at a corner table with coffee and pastries. And we talked. Really talked. 4 hours. She asked me questions about my life. About how I'd learned to bake professionally. About the challenges of starting a business. About my friends and my community. And she listened. Really listened. The way she should have listened years ago. And I asked her questions too. About her work, her patients, her life. About the therapy she'd been doing. About what she'd learned. I learned I was trying to become someone I wasn't, she said quietly. I thought success meant being rich and sophisticated and completely disconnected from where I came from. But that's not success. That's just emptiness. Expensive emptiness, but emptiness all the same. What do you think success is now? I asked. She thought for a moment. Being someone I respect when I look in the mirror. Being someone who helps people because it's right, not because it makes me look good. Being someone who values relationships over reputation. Being someone worthy of being your daughter. I felt something crack in my chest. The wall I'd built around my heart, necessary for my survival, started to crumble. Just a little. You hurt me, I said, my voice shaking. More than anyone has ever hurt me. More than I thought it was possible to be hurt. I know, she said, tears streaming down her face. I know, Mama. And I'm so sorry. So incredibly sorry. Sorry isn't enough, I said. It will never be enough. What you did can't be undone. That moment at your graduation, those words you said, they're carved into my memory forever. I'll carry that pain for the rest of my life. I know, she whispered. But, I continued, and I reached across the table to take her hand, I'm not going to let that pain define me anymore. I'm not going to let what you did destroy the rest of my life. I built something beautiful from the ashes of that humiliation. And maybe we can build something new too. Not the old relationship. That's dead. But something new. Something based on mutual respect and honest appreciation. She gripped my hand tightly, sobbing. I would like that. I would like that so much. It won't be easy, I warned. I have boundaries now. Hard boundaries. If you ever disrespect me again, if you ever make me feel small or ashamed, I'm done. Permanently. There won't be another chance. I understand, she said. I will never, ever do that again. I swear to you. We sat there for a long time, holding hands across the table. Two women who had been destroyed and rebuilt. Who had lost each other and found a painful path back. Melissa stayed for the weekend. I showed her around town. Introduced her to my friends. Let her help in the bakery kitchen, teaching her some of my techniques. And I watched her carefully. Watched how she interacted with people. How she treated the young woman I'd hired as an assistant. How she responded when things didn't go perfectly. And I saw it. Real change. Not perfect. Not complete. But real. When she left on Sunday evening, we hugged. Really hugged. For the first time in years. Thank you for giving me a chance, she said. Thank you for not giving up on me even when I gave up on you. I did give up on you, I said honestly. For a while. And maybe I needed to. Maybe we both needed that separation so we could become who we needed to be. Maybe, she agreed. Over the following months, we built something new. Something fragile but growing stronger. She visited when she could. We talked regularly. She started sending me patients who needed resources, asking if I knew of community programs that could help. She was becoming the kind of doctor who saw the whole person, not just the medical problem. And I continued building my life. My business expanded. I opened a second location. I was featured in a national magazine about women entrepreneurs. I traveled for the first time in my life, attending a baking conference in another state. I was living. Really living. 2 years after that first apologetic phone call, Melissa called me with news. Mama, she said, her voice excited, I got a position at a community health clinic. It doesn't pay as much as the hospital, but it's where I want to be. Helping people who need it most. People who remind me of you. I'm proud of you, I said. And I meant it. Thank you, she whispered. That means everything to me. Now, standing here years later, looking back on this journey, I want you to understand something. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean pretending the hurt never happened. It doesn't mean returning to the way things were. Forgiveness, real forgiveness, means choosing not to let someone else's cruelty define your life. It means building boundaries that protect you while leaving room for growth. It means understanding that people can change, but not requiring them to change for you to move forward with your own life. My daughter destroyed me once. But I rebuilt myself. And that rebuilt version of me is stronger than the original. More confident. More self-aware. More certain of my own worth. Could I have stayed angry forever? Yes. Would I have been justified in cutting her off permanently? Absolutely. But I chose a different path. not because she deserved it, but because I deserved peace. I deserved to not carry that rage for the rest of my life. But let me be very clear, I did not make this choice from a place of weakness. I made it from a place of strength. The old Veronica, the one who sacrificed everything, would have rushed to rescue her daughter the moment she called. Would have given her money, fixed her problems, enabled her to avoid consequences. The new Veronica, the woman I became, did something different. I let her struggle. I let her face consequences. I let her rebuild herself the way I had to rebuild myself. And only when she had done that work, only when she had proven through actions and not just words that she had changed, did I begin to let her back in. That's the lesson I want you to take from my story. You can love someone and still hold them accountable. You can forgive someone and still maintain boundaries. You can give someone a second chance without returning to old patterns of dysfunction. And most importantly, your worth is not determined by how others treat you. My daughter called me illiterate and worthless. But I wasn't. I never was. I was always valuable. I just needed to see it for myself. If you're watching this and you've been betrayed by someone you loved, someone you sacrificed for, I want you to hear this: you are not defined by their rejection. You are not worthless because they treated you as worthless. You are more than their cruelty. More than their judgment. More than their inability to see your worth. Build your own life. Discover your own value. Create your own success. Not to prove anything to them, but to prove something to yourself. That you are capable. That you are strong. That you are worthy. And if they come back, if they apologize, if they change, then you can decide from a place of strength whether to let them back in or not. Both choices are valid. Both choices are okay. I chose to rebuild a relationship with my daughter. But it's not the relationship we had before. It's better. It's healthier. It's based on mutual respect instead of one-sided sacrifice. And it only exists because I was strong enough to walk away first. Strong enough to say no. Strong enough to value myself. Some of you are asking, but what about forgiveness? Doesn't the Bible say to forgive? Doesn't being a good person mean giving unlimited chances? And I'll tell you what I learned: forgiveness and allowing mistreatment are not the same thing. You can forgive someone's debt against you while still refusing to give them another loan. You can release your anger while still protecting yourself from future harm. You can wish someone well while keeping them at a distance. God doesn't require you to be a doormat. Even divine love has boundaries. Even Christ overturned tables when people desecrated sacred spaces. And you, my friend, you are a sacred space. Your heart is a sacred space. And you have every right to protect it. My daughter learned a hard lesson. She learned that status and wealth and sophistication mean nothing if you have no character. She learned that the people you look down on today might be the only ones willing to help you tomorrow. She learned that a mother's love is not infinite and unconditional when it's taken for granted and actively abused. And she learned it the hardest way possible, by losing everything. Her career was almost destroyed. Her finances ruined. Her relationships shattered. Her pride was crushed. She had to hit absolute rock bottom before she could see clearly. Before she could understand what she'd thrown away. Some people need to hit rock bottom. Not because we want them to suffer. But because some lessons can only be learned through pain. Some transformations only happen when everything else is stripped away. I didn't save her from that rock bottom. That was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Every motherly instinct in me wanted to rush in, to fix it, to make her pain go away. But I didn't. Because saving her would have prevented her from saving herself. And she needed to save herself. She needed to learn that she could survive without her pride, without her possessions, without the image she'd built. And she did survive. She did learn. She did change. And that change was real because she did it herself, not because I rescued her. Now, when we talk, there's honesty between us. There's respect. She tells me about her struggles, and I listen without rushing to fix them. She asks for my advice, and I give it without taking over. She makes mistakes, and I let her learn from them without judgment. Last month, she called me on a Sunday evening. "Mama," she said, "I had a patient today who reminded me so much of you." She was in her 60s, worked her whole life in factories and cleaning jobs. And she was so worried about the cost of her medications. She kept apologizing for taking up my time, saying she knew she wasn't as important as my other patients. "What did you do?" I asked. "I sat with her for 30 minutes, Melissa said. I told her she was just as important as anyone else. I helped her apply for assistance programs. I gave her samples to tide her over. And then I just talked to her. Asked about her life. Her family. Her dreams. And Mama," she cried. She said no doctor had ever treated her like a person before. "You did good," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I thought of you the whole time," she said. "I thought about how many doctors probably treated you that way over the years. Dismissive. Rushed. Like you didn't matter. And I was ashamed all over again. Because I was one of those people. I treated you like you didn't matter. But you mattered then, and you matter now, and I will spend the rest of my life making sure you know that." Those are the moments that heal. Not the big apologies. Not the grand gestures. But the small, consistent actions that prove someone has really changed. My bakery is thriving now. I have 12 employees. We supply bread to 15 restaurants and cafes. We cater weddings and corporate events. I've won awards from the local Chamber of Commerce. I've been interviewed for podcasts and magazines. And you know what? It's not about the money or the recognition. It's about the fact that I did this. Me. Veronica Shaw, the illiterate cleaning woman who supposedly embarrassed her daughter. I built an empire from scratch with nothing but determination and skill and courage. Every time someone compliments my bread, every time a customer says they drove an hour just to buy from my bakery, every time I deposit money into my business account. It's validation. Not that I need their validation to know my worth anymore. But it's satisfying. It's proof that I was always capable. I just needed the chance. I mentor young women now. Women who come from poverty, who didn't get to finish school, who think they're too old or too uneducated or too broken to start something new. And I tell them my story. I show them what's possible. I give them hope. And sometimes, Melissa joins me. She speaks to them about her journey. About how she had everything and lost it because she valued the wrong things. About how she learned that character matters more than credentials. About how she rebuilt herself from humiliation and shame. Together, we're proof that transformation is possible. That people can change. Those relationships can be rebuilt, though they'll never be what they were. They can be something different. Something new. Something perhaps even better because it's built on truth instead of illusion. But I want to end with this: my story is not a prescription for how you should handle your own betrayals. Every situation is different. Every relationship is unique. What worked for me might not work for you. If someone has betrayed you, hurt you, rejected you after you sacrificed for them, you have choices. You can walk away permanently, and that's valid. You can set boundaries and maintain distance, and that's valid. You can work toward reconciliation, and that's valid too. What's not valid is letting their treatment of you define your worth. What's not valid is staying in a pattern of abuse and calling it love. What's not valid is sacrificing yourself endlessly for someone who will never appreciate it. Know your worth. Protect your peace. Build your life. And then, from that place of strength and wholeness, make whatever choice feels right for you. My name is Veronica Shaw. I'm 65 years old. My daughter called me illiterate and worthless and denied me as her mother. And I survived. I thrived. I became someone I'm proud to be. And if I can do it, so can you. Thank you for listening to my story. Please like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share your own experiences in the comments. Tell me your name, your city, and the word present so I know you made it to the end. And remember, you are worthy. You are valuable. You are enough. Never let anyone convince you otherwise.